Hello, all my beautiful animus assassinos. Welcome back to the animus with our wonderful. If you think about it, the little fuzzy thing here kind of vibes with my part of my GIFs. Let's see. Even though I don't intend it to be that fuzzy. Although fuzzies are a good thing, right? We like fuzzies. Let's clean this up a little bit here. Do all this. There we go. By the way, if some of you caught my my Smite stream last night, I hope you too are as upset with how the wonderful company known as Titan Forge and Hi-Rez were treating me in my first games back on a new account. Because it was pretty ridiculous. Alright, hold on here. And I learned some interesting things recently as well about Hi-Rez and their wonderful parent company, Georgia Media Entertainment. Apparently, Georgia's a state-run organization business thing. Gosh. I wonder what kind of state secrets, state spying goes on at that company. Haha. But that's not today's topic. Today's topic is actually more along the lines of a subject that is very near and dear to me and my country. Once I can figure out this green screen issue. Well, that should be fine. We should be able to make this work. There we go. That's a little better. Alright, let's see. How does it look? Does it look good? Cool. So today's topic, I want to make kind of about, well, it's two kind of separate points. First, I want to talk about separation of church and state in America and its role in governance and the order of operations, because I know a lot of you are math experts and really great at math, and I'm really not that great at math, but some of you have used math to try and manipulate things like video games. And, I'm no math expert, but there's something that even math people should understand. And that's a term, a phrase known as the order of operations. Order of operations. This is a term that people in the math world should understand. And for those of you who aren't in the math world, order of operations is basically the order in which an equation can be figured out. Now, technically speaking, America isn't supposed to be an equation per se. It's supposed to be a pretty upfront, kind of like democratic process. But there's a lot of people who have taken things like church and state, or separation of church and state, and, you know, twisted the order of operations in regards to American governance. So today I want to talk about the order of operations in America in regards to its governance, specifically separation of church and state, and how it affects things like our free time, and how we get to spend time doing things. Because, I think a big difference between America and a lot of other countries has to do with free time and how we spend that free time. People judge Americans for all kinds of different things. Um, More, even in America, Americans get judged by how they spend their time. You know, so I think what makes America one of the unique places in the world is that we have the freedom to essentially have free time. You know, we can do things and then have extra time to be able to do other things. That's one of the beautiful that's one of the beautiful things about freedom and independence in America. It's one of those things. And in other countries where there are dictator rule or governance, and regimes that kind of want to control you, they want to control people's time to the point where rebellions or revolutions can't happen. And that's why people like controlling people's time. Because if you can control people's time, you can control the activities that they do, you can control the thoughts that they're thinking based on their work, etc., etc. And America is supposed to be one of those free places where your time can kind of be, your own. What the heck was that? So, order of operations. Now, in today's modern America, there are certain things that have taken place. I get this? Where'd it go? What? I don't know what that was. I think I got it. There are certain things that have taken place since World War II. For a large part of history, the religious world has had an element of governance in most of their systems that they've lived in. They've played a large part and a role. And in America, we've had something called separation of church and state. Now, since World War II, America kind of had this, new wave of freedom, so to speak. Financial freedom, political freedom. We saved the world from the Nazis, or were part of the countries that helped save the world from the Nazis and their evil ways. And one of the things that happened after World War II was the Cold War. And from the Cold War, a couple things occurred in American life that really changed some dynamics of the church and state concept. The first thing, I think it was the first thing, was the introduction of the word God on U.S. paper currency. I think it was first, or not, I'm sorry, the introduction of the word God in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then after that was the introduction of the words "In God We Trust" on paper currency. Now I believe coin currency had introduced it earlier on. And, I honestly, I haven't done enough research to talk about the coin aspect, but the paper one is more concerning to me because that one has a much more definitive impact on American lifestyle. And part of the reason that they did this wasn't because we were trying to, make religion a certain element of society. It was done to fight a Cold War. It was done to fight the Soviet Union post-World War II, who presented a threat to American life. But there's a lot of interesting questions about that. For one, they added the word God to the Pledge of Allegiance. to establish that we were a nation that had God in it, where the communist country didn't have God. But I find that to be an interesting perspective, only because, there's a lot of buildings in Russia that were built based on certain religious faiths. So, when people used the example that we're fighting the godless Soviet Union, it's just confusing when there were many architectural buildings built around it. So, where the godless part came in, maybe it was in their governance, is what they were referring to. But there is a reason why we have that separation of church and state. So, first thing is the word God being introduced in the Pledge of Allegiance. Someone once said it's just a song. It's technically a pledge of allegiance, literally in the name. So it does have kind of like a song to it, or a song element. But although Star Spangled Banner would be more song, but it's a pledge, and in America it's something usually said while in school, up to high school usually, and kind of in college they kind of wasn't really a big requirement, but people still say the Pledge of Allegiance. And they added the word God to separate us and fight a war on the Cold War. Basically, it was done to fight the Cold War. And then in a similar time period, they also added the phrase "In God We Trust" on paper currency, which is again probably to fight the Cold War. Now, my biggest complaint with this is that if things like the word God were included in our Pledge of Allegiance and included in currency, and it was specifically meant to fight the Cold War, then when we won the Cold War, how come the United States didn't revert back to its original perspectives of separation of church and state? That's one of my big questions. What caused America to not, because if it was done simply for the purposes of fighting a Soviet Union, communist Soviet Union, and it was done specifically during a Cold War era, and if we won the war, then why didn't they go back? Why did they continue to try to use that as a basis to establish other religious governance? And so that's one of my main viewpoints that I always I'm trying to change and revert back to our more separation of church and state governance ways. But this has always been a question for me that nobody really has a clear answer on. So there's our first viewpoint for today. Let's see, where's our little cozy spot? Cozy. And another thing interesting about, In God We Trust on currency, paper currency. In God We Trust was actually recently fought in the court system and challenged for being a violation of separation of church and state. And they were able to make some progress, but it seems some concessions had to be made. And I wonder if that was due to certain, political reasons. So I didn't press anything. I don't know why that did that. Well, actually, I did press the mouse, but now I have a brain fart moment. By the way, if anybody has a train of thought and all of a sudden your brain kind of goes blank and you forget what you're thinking of, I refer to it as a brain fart. I refer to it as something, and my personal belief is that it's a technological or electromagnetic static electricity manipulation meant to interfere with our thought process. It's hard to are there ways to prove it? Probably. I don't know what the ways are other than just describing and talking about it. But yeah. So the In God We Trust on currency was actually challenged in the courts, I believe in the 2000 era, somewhere in the 2000s, and it did have success. So, slight success, but it's, certain aspects are interesting to me in the sense that they could have done more. So what they were able to do was, instead of "In God We Trust" on currency being, and I think I've mentioned this before, gobble gobble, instead of it being considered a religious phrase, for legal purposes, "In God We Trust" is actually considered a cultural reference, which is a partial win for separation of church and state, but it also shows, the difficulties in trying to reestablish separation of church and state, because even though separation, we kind of it's referred to as a cultural reference, it still places a preferential bias, or in some cases discriminatory point of view towards the monotheistic faiths, when there are realistically many faiths that are protected in the United States. And this is where order of operations comes into play. In the United States, even when politicians are elected into office, even when they are representing a religious faith-based population and their voter base is religious, when all politicians take office and government officials take office or take jobs in the state, or government perspective, they take an oath. They take an oath to put America's ideals first and to protect those ideals first and foremost. Even if you have a voter base that you're representing that's religious, they technically still have an obligation to put the order of operations of America and what I consider to be the foundations of independence and liberty and more modern inclusion of civil rights. Those are the foundations of which America are built upon. So I find it interesting that they accepted that the statement on currency was a violation of separation of church and state, to the point that they classified it as a cultural reference, but they still weren't able to remove it from currency completely, at least up to this point, due to the fact that it's a bias, it's a marketing. Even if it's a cultural reference, it still places a marketing bias, some type of bias towards a particular faith-based ideological perspective, which is the monotheistic faith. Now it says God, and there are 3 specific religions that deal with that particular phrase. Now, and the argument, I'm sure, can be made that there are more, and I'm sure they're correct, but in America, it's a monotheistic reference, in my opinion. And the monotheistic faiths are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And I'm making an assessment of this myself, but I have a strong feeling and inclination to believe that most of the God reference is a reference towards the Christian monotheistic perspective. Especially given the war in the Middle Eastern conflict. It's not a war, by the way. It's not a war because it was never considered a war by Congress. Simply a very long conflict. So, in my opinion, even the cultural reference itself, placed on U.S. currency, places a bias perspective, and one could argue a discriminatory perspective, discriminating against other faiths by allowing one faith or one particular faith-based group to have more marketing than others. So, that's today's next viewpoint here. My personal opinion, what I would like to see in America, I would like to see the Pledge of Allegiance return to its original format that doesn't include the word God, and maybe even update it with the word civil rights, with I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under Constitution, with liberty, justice, and civil rights for all. Maybe include civil rights in there, or independence, the word independence, because my foundation of America my foundation is about independence, liberty, and civil rights. And I think if the United States of America makes their, fixes their order of operations to make sure that independence, liberty, and civil rights are always the most foundational aspects and the order of operations in which we govern, then I think you can solve a lot of issues. I really think you can. Will people in the faith-based communities be upset? Sure, but the religious communities and the faith-based communities, they have been around for a long time, thousands of years, right? And that's not including all of the other faiths. I'm just referring specifically to the monotheistic faiths. They've been around for quite a long time. And America's only been around for 200 plus years, coming up on 300. So, they obviously, the faith-based communities have thousands of years of investment, including themselves in system of governance and aspects of controlling society based on their point of views. And the only downside to that is not all faith-based perspectives value independence, liberty, and civil rights. And that's why the order of operations is so important in this regard, because there are many faith-based communities that value community over individualism. And in America, individualism is it's a part of independence and liberty. Being able to live independently without having to rely on, a certain aspect of community. And that's not to say that community isn't important. Community is very much important. But I think community should, include their order of operations to represent an independent way of life so that, people can choose to live independently whenever they want, instead of being sucked into a community-based system that makes independent living more difficult, And the reason, this is important is that whenever you have a religious community trying to govern in a society, they're of course going to be biased on certain perspectives. And the reason America has separation of church and state is to prevent that bias from occurring so that Americans may live their lives without being discriminated against. There's many things that you're not supposed to discriminate in America. And one of those things is freedom of religion. That's both the ability to practice a faith and worship a faith, but also the ability to not worship a faith if you want to. Just non-discrimination of gender, sex, disability, sexual orientation. If there's one that I'm forgetting, ethnicity. I think that covers most of the main discriminatory aspects. We have this foundation that's built upon not discriminating against people, and not all people in the religious community are like this, of course, but there is an element in the religious world that does discriminate against people based on those very factors. And I think it's nice that they're willing to, be in America where they are given the right to worship their faith along with all the others. The heck? Where'd you come from? Very nice. I think it's very nice, but I think they kind of took a position in governance to where they controlled a certain power element of it, and they respect certain rules like that, but it also makes it more difficult for people to be protected in cases where they want to ignore people's rights. And that's why the governance and order of operations part is important, even for political representatives. Because if you give the power to religious communities to govern solely based on their religious perspectives, then, if they choose to just ignore certain aspects of discrimination in favor of their religious beliefs, then they technically have the bias and advantage if they have control of governance based on religion. Now, if the order of operations is set to the correct standard, where there is a separation of church and state, and that's not to say people can't be in government without their faith perspectives, but it's supposed to be a system of worship. It's not supposed to be a system of governance. Now, the religious community has governed for many years. They have a lot of history of governance, but one of the things that caused America's independence was to free itself, at least in this specific case, from the Church of England, or the church, that was the power entity in England at the time. And that's why France is such a big ally, because France has a vibe, a non-religious vibe to it that values liberty. I don't know about their independence part, but they do value liberty like we do. We got the Statue of Liberty from France. So, in America, we don't just have liberty though; we have independence and liberty. And those were the two really main foundations in our nation's beginnings. And as we approach the beginning of America in this game, this is a very foundational aspect. Even though religion is still a part of society, and that's okay. It's okay if it's a part of society, but it shouldn't be an aspect of governance. And when discrimination occurs because somebody's not religious, or when discrimination occurs because somebody doesn't believe in certain religious beliefs, how are individuals, and this is where the individualism part of America is so important, when individuals are discriminated against, they're supposed to have government protections that allow them to be protected from that. But if you have a system of governance based on religion, it makes the discrimination aspects harder to fight, or it makes it a longer battle. And this is something that the religious community have mastered over the thousands of years that they've been, doing things in society. And free time. We have these beliefs in America, but in order, that are already instituted. But when the religious community takes over the governance and they put you in a position to fight for those rights again, or to fight for their freedom, they're basically trying to control your time, your free time. And as I mentioned before, time being controlled is a means to prevent things like revolutions or rebellions. Societies want their people, like for example, China's a great example. China probably has systems in place that try to control all the elements that a person does in a day, and business world has a certain element to this, your 9-to-5 culture, if you will. These are things meant to keep people busy so that their time is occupied. And then when there are small percentages of people who don't fit within that system, they send them on these journeys to occupy their time to fight for the things that they believe in. But the beautiful part about America is we did it. 200 plus years ago, we created that system of independence and liberty. So Americans shouldn't have to fight for independence, liberty, and civil rights again when we already did it. And this is why this governance thing is so important and such a big deal. Because if our system of governance can go back to its independence, liberty, and civil rights roots and foundations, then you're not going to waste the time of Americans who are trying to live their independent American life. And time is just as valuable as so many other things. Money's valuable, time's valuable. Some people say time is money, And that's why I think the religious community also went for the currency play. They wanted their perspective on currency to say that, religion is so important and so controlling and so powerful that, time is money and money is time. And the religion if religion can put their stamp on currency, then who's to say that they can't control people's time? So if my rights have been discriminated or violated, and my way of life and ability to do things like, for example, meet people and date people, if I have a hard time dating people because I'm a non-religious or non-religious Jewish person, and I know that's a weird statement, but it is a true statement. If my ability to meet and date people is affected by that, then it's like, they're intentionally just wasting my time. So And by the way, I'm very much interested in dating at the moment. I know my life's circumstances are unique. I know my life's circumstances. Hold on, let's synchronize. Should we synchronize now? Or I'll just go through. I have a lot of that has gone on in my life in the past 4 years from the moment I became homeless, and I posted a set of videos recently. Last week, 1 week ago, was my 4 year homelessness venture. Um, so last week on Monday, that was 4 years of being homeless. 4 years of not having my own permanent, my own, not something that I'm sharing or being put into a situation because of my unique circumstances. But so I have been homeless for over 4 years, and you know, and that journey started. And if you see on my YouTube page, there's a bunch of about 20 videos that I posted on the very first day that I was homeless. And I know some of it might seem crazy, but it's meant to provide a bunch of perspectives. The first perspective is my state of mind and my perspective of things on that day 4 years ago. You know, and if you need a playlist, there's a playlist referred to as evidence. And these are all videos that I feel support things that have occurred in my life that have impacted my ability to have more free time, that have impacted my ability to date people, that have impacted my ability to receive income, and in some cases, examples of discrimination and harassment. And, so I posted last night a bunch of videos, and it kind of, I wasn't sure whether I was going to do it or not, but I did it in response to this whole, kind of to this whole high res thing with them clearly, impacting my gameplay experience. And I think a lot of these gaming multiplayer games, they try to trigger gamers. They try to frustrate gamers by manipulating the math and the algorithm of the games, whether that's complete cheating or hacking, or whether that's mathematical bullshit scenarios. That's why I use the term order of operations for this whole thing, because even the people who work in the mathematical aspect can understand what order of operations is. And I feel that my order of operations has messed up certain aspects of my life. With that being said, I think I still have a pretty good control over my life. And I think my life will improve, and I believe my life will get better in a lot of different ways. I'd like to start dating people. My life circumstances, situations do have certain unusualness and potential future legal cases involved, but I don't want that to scare anybody away. I don't want that to intimidate people, because for those of you that do get to meet me, it could be a really awesome experience, and it could be a life. For some of you, you might get to do something that most people, wish they could do. And I've taken the time to, I don't know how this whole Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge thing work, but I've got a Tinder, I've got a Bumble on a Hinge. Other than trying to match with people on these dating apps, I don't really know how to date people. I've dated people before, but it's usually through friends, and my close friends group is at 33 years old is much different than it was when I was in college, which is when I was dating most people. So for people, I'm really interested in dating. It's a really important part of my life. I'm looking to be in a relationship. I have a FetLife profile. I'm very kink friendly. I'm not crazy, super crazy kink, but I'm looking to build things like a poly family for those that are interested in that concept. And monogamy, I can start out with individuals at first, and then build upon that into my monogamous relationship. And you can actually read more on it on my FetLife profile. And for those of you who have FetLife or know about it, it is a website, a social website for people who are involved in the fetish world or the kink world. There's adult, it's a mature theme, adult theme. There's definitely a sex theme, but it's not just about sex. It's about being a part of a community of people who share a different perspective on, one of the freedoms of sexuality. So if anybody is interested in seeking me out, my profile on there is Night Owl Nerd, all one word. That's Night Owl Nerd. And if you're afraid to engage with me on Twitch, feel free to reach out to me on FetLife. I'm currently in Arizona. I don't know how long I'll be here for. I'd like to go back to California. But I'm very much interested in dating people. And if you're going to date me, please have an understanding about my fetish interests, my polyamorous interests, my non-religious perspectives, and the legal scenarios that have been accumulating over the past 4 years. But for those of you who are okay with those aspects, I think I'm going to have a pretty fun ride. Once my financial life gets sorted out, I'm going to really be able to accomplish things that I've always wanted to accomplish, even more so. And the reality is because of money. Money really does have an impact. And, the religious world knows this because, they put their stamp on currency. So, I know some aspects of my life seem crazy. I know I even have a certain way that I express my emotional distress, or a way that I express my opinions. And I try to do it, I have my stream here, and I try to do it in a really appropriate way, but in a mature way. And that's another thing about this whole gaming thing, is that I consider myself a mature content streamer, a mature content creator, a mature, gamer. And I say use the word mature in the sense that I'm gonna try and have content that's gonna be above the 18-year-old age range. I know there's a big, under 18 gamer base, and family-friendly mentality and perspectives, of course, are a thing that the religious world always pushes. They freak out when they see a little bit of booty shaking at the Super Bowl. A little booty shaking, and people complain about that, right? The halftime show. But I'm somebody who very much values and supports my sexual freedom, and my constitutionally protected rights. And so for any of you who are interested in dating me, please reach out to me, maybe through FetLife, or if you're lucky enough, maybe I get matched up with people on Tinder or Bumble or Hinge. Those are the 3 services I'm using. And I actually sent a couple messages to Tinder and Bumble, because I've used it, I've tried to use their services in the past. And I would, without being too conceited, I'm a pretty attractive guy. And I consider myself entertaining and fun enough to be around on a date. And I'm not a spam account. I'm a real account. I'm a real person seeking real connections with people. I'm not trying to misrepresent myself, but I know there's a lot of people out there who are capable of dating me. And so Tinder, Bumble, sent you both a message, today, kind of clarifying that I'd like my profile to be more visible, to be able to make matches, because I swipe through these things, and I don't even get matches. And I don't think my opinions on the kink world, or my perspectives on or the religious world, I don't think that should be a factor that discriminates me from being able to meet people. So if some of these platforms are worried that I'm a bot or a spam account, I'm not. I'm a real person. If some of these people are manipulating my matching algorithm because of my perspectives, then I would appreciate it if you didn't. I think there's enough like-minded individuals where I can be matched with people who are local to me. And for somebody like myself, who's attractive, entertaining, to not even get matched up with people, and I get it. There are girl profiles and they get hundreds of matches, thousands sometimes. But, I feel like I should match up with people, and I feel like I should match up with people enough to the point where I can actually make real life dating connections. So I just want everybody to be out there aware I am looking to date. I am single. If other people are claiming to be in relationship with me, digitally or unbeknownst to me, maybe they should reach out to me in a more direct way, because maybe some of these people are the right match. You know, for those of you that pay attention to my video series, I posted a video in my Moose to Moose's Loose Season 2 for the Smite series. It was episode 4, and at the end of the episode, may have been episode 3, it was episode 3 or 4, and at the end of episode, I kind of describe the things that I'm looking for. I was looking to get back in the gaming community. I was looking to get back to, trying to make an income and an earning in the gaming industry. I was trying to meet somebody who supported my gaming interests. And there was one other thing that I can't think off the top of my head right now, but it was basically along those same lines, and that's why the high res thing is so, the Titan Forge high res Smite thing is frustrating, because I wanted the gaming industry to help improve my life. I didn't want them to try to make it worse because of my opinions and beliefs, because then I feel like I'm being discriminated against. And discrimination unfortunately does happen to a certain extent, but it shouldn't. And when it does, how do you resolve it without it being a legal fight? I don't necessarily want a legal fight. I want people to not discriminate against me, for just having a different opinion. And it's not like these are odd opinions. I think I have opinions that are, founded in rationality and reason and logic. I'm sure in other things as well. So I think that might be today's last viewpoint. Let's sync it. And by the way, just because I'm interested in polydynamics doesn't mean that I can't start with one person first. I could start with one person first, and then it can develop, into a greater polyamorous relationship with other people if everybody's, is the right fit. But at the very least, I want to start with one person. And if I'm able to do more than one person in the beginning, that's cool too. I'm not against that. So, yeah. I think those are today's viewpoints, for the most part. I'm sure as I play, maybe I'll go into a little bit deeper detail, but these are important things to me. Relationship, income, and my free time. And my free time, if it's being used to work and make an income, then I'm, using my free time to make an income. So, but I'm ready to date, And some people are like, well, why don't you just go out to a bar? I'm not really a big drinker. I like beer, I like wine, hard liquor, not really as much. But I could drink it if possible. But, I don't, what am I going to do? Go out to a bar by myself and just kind of like poke and prod people to date with my kinkier side? Some people might take that as, hostile or aggressive, and like, oh, you creepy kinky person freaking people out. That's not what I want to do. So that's why I'm trying to seek avenues and ways to meet people, like through these dating apps, while accurately representing myself. And I mention these things in these dating apps. I'm not hiding these things. I mention I'm kink friendly. So I'm, other than these dating apps and going to a bar, which I'm not really a big drinker to begin with, what am I supposed to do? How do I meet people? And I really like it when girls, like, I find it attractive if a girl can ask me out on a date. Now, does that mean I'll accept every single girl who asks me out on a date? No. But I think it's attractive, especially in today's day and age of equality. Girls, in a lot of ways, are making advancements over males in the business industry and in America that give them the power and ability to empower themselves to be able to be the ones that ask individuals out, And until I get my income and financial situation sorted out, I might be a little submissive to a female, in the sense that they might have more money to me. They might have a more financial dominant position than me, at least until my situation is resolved. So, I'm a more dominant personality, um, and submissive in certain aspects to the right people for relationship purposes. Um, but these are certain times and periods where some people who have a certain dominance over me, even if it's financial, this be an opportunity for you to showcase that dominance as well. Also, I like being spoiled. Really like being spoiled. Big fan of being spoiled. So feel free. I find it very attractive when a girl can ask me out, and being spoiled is something I really enjoy as well. So, uh, you know, and a lot of people wonder, I have this whole IVI vibe. I have the IVI vibe on my relationship kink life, and I also have it on my business life with this, content stuff. They're two separate things. I just want to clarify that. And I go in and I mention this. If you go to my FetLife profile and you look at my writings, I've got a bunch of writings that are relevant. Specifically, there's my the House of Moose. It has a really nice detailed thing of everything that things that I'm looking for, things I'm into, foundations of what I'm trying to build in my own personal life. Um, you can get a little look into that if you're really interested, and you know, it so I'm putting myself out there. I'm trying to make myself accessible. I'm trying to make myself available. And if there are girls out there who don't mind asking me out, well, at least until I get when I get my financial situation resolved, I probably will have more, not confidence, but I'll have more strength in being able to ask out others. But as somebody who's dealing with a certain financial situation of poverty and homelessness, there's a certain financial element that limits certain things that I could do. But I think I'm attractive enough. And I think in the right environments, I'm really awesome. In some environments, I might showcase some of my not as great qualities. But I really think I'm a fun person. I like having control of things to a certain extent. I like being able to control, like picking things on my own for me. But if you're a girl who likes to, ask guys out, or if you're a girl who's not afraid to ask a guy out, and you see me, please, don't be afraid to ask. And if I politely decline, don't be insulted either. And if I accept, you know, it may be, don't assume that it's going to be an everlasting, relationship love either. The whole point of dating is to be able to get to know someone and meet them, see how you vibe with each other. Um, so I'm at a point in my life where I really want to make connections. I don't want to limit my connections with people. I want to improve and enhance and open up my connections with people. And so, for those of you who would be interested in dating me, who live in the Surprise, Arizona area, or even if you don't mind picking me up and taking me to different parts of Arizona, I'm down with that too. But I'm here. I'm available, and it would also give me something to do other than kind of just sitting around doing content things, which is nice. But it's also nice to be social, and I'd like to be more social. Who knows? Maybe I'll go out and just take a chance. Maybe I'll go out to a bar tonight, and just grab a beer and see if somebody hits it up with me or whatever. But don't be afraid to ask me out either. You never know, right? All right, so let's get to the main mission. I hope everyone had a good weekend. I had an okay weekend. kind of recovering. Had some feet and lower back kind of soreness that I was able to kind of foam roll out. Foam rolling was a huge benefit. So if anybody ever has lower back issues, foam rolling could be a really, also bending over, touching, certain exercises allow you to bend over and stretch your back is also, in case anybody else was dealing with that kind of aspect. Let's see what the main mission has in store for us.
Stefan, what is wrong? Where is Sam Adams?
Who cares? I've been robbed! Vont me le payer, ces scélérats de merde!
Oh, by the way,
where are you going?
Still need to have Sam Adams beer.
What's rightfully mine?
Didn't have a Sam Adams beer this last weekend. Thought about it, but it never happened. So sorry, Sam Adams. Wasn't trying to disrespect you.
Regardez! Some pathetic redcoats waiting for a beating! I will match your face to your jacket, crapule! Ces coquins me prennent mon père au Canada et voilà qu'ils me ravissent ma propriété ici. Il suffit.
Well, this is not the most exciting mission.
We are not English! We are not the king's men! We are free! But the king sends these redcoats to push us around! They are not our masters! This is our city! Let's show them who owns it! It's time to fight!
As,
Stefan, please!
begin our
Stop
independence
and
and liberty.
listen to me!
Part of,
I've listened for long enough. They come into my home and take my things?
Assassin's
I
Creed
will
3.
get my revenge. The man responsible for this will pay. His friends will pay. Voilà trop longtemps que je subis ces affronts. Ils vont goûter de mon courroux.
Hopefully, there's independence that translates, to the real world as
You
well.
looking for a fight, Englishman? I'll give you what you want. Hey, Redcoats! Your king is a pig!
Whoa. Big fella. Oh!
Où que j'aille, l'Anglois croise mon chemin. Ils me volent ma maison, ils m'obligent à fuir mon pays, et les voici qui veulent s'approprier ma nouvelle demeure.
Allez, allez.
There is a way to fight injustice, but this is not it.
Oh, by the way, also, yeah, I have this beautiful smile thing going on. Like, see that?
I will match your face to your jacket, Capule!
Just saying. Just saying. No big deal. Guy just walks through. Lady. Lady!
Destroyed? You stupid mug! I suppose you want me to tell Johnson his tea just spontaneously combusted? Nonsense. Someone's responsible for this, and you will find out who. And if you can't, I'll gut you and find a smarter mongrel who can.
What do we do? Create a window.
Okay.
Bloody hell are you?
Wow.
Why? You have no right to rob people blind. By decree of the
Got a
British
cleave in
Parliament
his
or
shoulder.
not. British Parliament?
Wow.
I worked for William Johnson.
Johnson?
By the way, I
And
should
you're
also
suffering
mention
cleanly.
my Artie Wing guy has nothing to do with period sex. Just want to clarify that. My Artie Wing guy, my alternate persona, my Artie Wing guy,
The people seem to have
it's
an
a
ear for you.
hockey reference.
What are the things you lost?
Has nothing to do with period
People
sex.
listen to me only
Never
because I
did.
spoke the truth loud
Never
enough.
did.
Which is worth 1,000 times the content of my footlocker. The English, they can keep my things.
You did well tonight.
I said I'd buy you an ale when you first helped me. In place of drink, I offer you my allegiance,
Ooh,
for what it's worth.
I like that.
Your aid is welcome, and I am grateful. Now, I need to find Sam Adams.
It's good motherfucking beer. Maybe I'll grab some Sam Adams. Who has got Sam Adams? Should I go out and have a Sam Adams tonight? Should we call it on this? This is a very, this is a pretty detailed game, this Independence one. I kind of like it. If I was just playing on my own, I'd probably be able to mess around with some of the more detailed aspects of it. Because I just play it when I stream, I kind of just tie the storyline in with the gameplay. It's kind of what made Brotherhood so good. It wasn't too complicated, but I can tell as I go deeper. Now, when I play Black Flag, I think that's going to go back to a little bit simpler vibe, because I had played Black Flag before. I think I played it all the way up to the British game, and then I haven't played the new games after that. And I think I'm not gonna make it too complicated to stream tonight, so I think we're gonna call it on that one. But yeah, I gotta try Sam Adams beer. So here I am. I'm back on a boat. Just trying to sail this thing to freedom. Captain Jack Sparrow. Something like that, right? Consider this like Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Commandeering my relationship life from the people who are trying to manipulate it. Yeah. Okay. Well, not too long on stream, mostly talking, not a lot of gameplay. Sorry to the people who watched for my gameplay. Today was more of a conversation piece, you know. But, yeah. This is me. I'm Moose. I'm doing things in life. I'm fighting for freedom and independence. And I'm trying to correct the order of operations in America. So if you're cool with that vibe, and my kinky side, and let's date or something.